It's debate night in America, Canes fans, but there certainly is very little to debate about the Miami Hurricanes tonight as they predictably handled Florida A&M in workmanlike fashion on Saturday at Hard Rock Stadium. The 2-0 Hurricanes are now solidly in the top 10 with a quarterback right in the heart of the Heisman Trophy race in this early part of the season. Ball State is next, and it's important for the Hurricanes to maintain their forward progress as this game will be followed by a trip to South Florida, where the Bulls are still smarting over the fact that they were able to push Alabama into the fourth quarter in a one-point game and then totally collapsed under pressure down the stretch. I believe Alabama had 199 yards offense in that fourth quarter up there in Tuscaloosa on Saturday and ended up blowing out the Bulls. Coming up after that game is a game against Virginia Tech, a team that a lot of people were picking to win the ACC this year. They've gotten off to a little bit of a slow start, but that will be a legitimate game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And then after that, Miami has to go play a Cal team that only went on the road this past weekend and beat Auburn at Auburn. Not something you see very often. Great accomplishment for Cal. We congratulate them. But the bottom line is the degree of difficulty is about to go up for the Hurricanes. And we're going to talk about all of that tonight and more in what is going to be an abbreviated 1-hour show tonight in deference to the presidential debate that I know everybody wants to go watch at 9. So I'll say hello again, everybody, and welcome once again to CaneSport Live. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, and we welcome you to the People's Show. Tonight, our show is presented by Caneswear, your ultimate destination for all of your Hurricanes merchandise. You can go to Caneswear.com or visit the store itself at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. If you didn't get there before the FAMU game, go to Caneswear before the Ball State game. Load yourself up on Hurricane gear for the entire season. We'll talk a little bit more about Caneswear later. Matt Shodell is going to be joining me on the show tonight. So let me bring him in right now. And Matt, welcome back to CaneSport Live. You were there, obviously, on Saturday at the Hard Rock Stadium for the Ball State game. Not the Ball State, the FAMU game. Talk a little bit about your impressions coming out of that game and, you know, what you feel the mindset is going into Ball State.
My impressions coming out of the FAMU game is we learned what we already knew. Miami's a very talented team, and with Cam Ward on the team, it looks like a playoff team to me. The best team that's been at Miami, I think, since 2002. Certainly offensively, the best team since 2002. What we haven't learned yet is how Miami's going to fare against teams that can do some maybe different things that Florida wasn't able to do offensively or defensively. Because let's face it, FAMU is it's a totally overmatched team. And I know Miami was a little bit sloppy in like a quarter, maybe 8 minutes of the game. And Mario freaked out over it a little bit in the media this week because, you know, you have to find something, right? And we're not going to learn much more against Ball State. I mean, Miami might struggle for another 8 minutes, but I mean, they're going to beat Ball State, right? They're going to beat USF. Virginia Tech's already lost a game. So to me, the key stretch, and you know, the reason I'm sidestepping what I learned, because you didn't learn a lot in FAMU. You just didn't. Young players flashed, which is great. You love that. And they have to keep progressing. That's really important, obviously, for the future. But big picture fans care about this season. So big picture this season, the games that are the most important games right now are the 3-game stretch of Cal, Louisville, Florida State. I'm pretty sure back to back to back. And of those 3, the most important to me right now is Louisville, because at the end of the day, Miami needs to have a signature victory to impress pollsters. If they wind up with 2 losses instead of 1 loss, they need to be in that playoffs in the top 12, right? Or maybe even the top 10, because maybe a conference champion won't be in the top 12 but gets an automatic bid the way the system works now with the playoffs. So Louisville right now appears to be the best team that Miami's going to face in terms of national perception. And yeah, you know, Louisville's not a household name. It's not an Ohio State, you know, go down the list of these top programs, but it's the best Miami's going to face. So if Miami can go to Louisville in that game and win that game, I don't care how tight it is, they'll be in fantastic position to be in the ACC title game. And then you win the ACC title game, you have an automatic bye. Even if you lose the ACC title game, if Miami's able to just have 1 loss at that point, and that would be the 1 loss, then they're in the playoffs. If they lose a game they're not supposed to, then all bets are off. But if you lose that Louisville game, right? Miami doesn't play Clemson. So hypothetically, let's say you lose to a really good Louisville team. Louisville and Clemson could be in the ACC title game, and Miami could perhaps not be. And I don't know what happens at that point, right? Because are 3 ACC teams going to make the playoffs? Let's say Louisville loses to Clemson, but had beaten Miami. Do you give them a spot ahead of Miami? It's going to be very muddy. So to me, the must-win game this year is not Florida State anymore. Okay, it's Louisville. You got to beat Louisville because if you wind up in a 3-way, 1-loss tie bracket at the end of the year for the 2 spots in the ACC title game, and you beat Louisville, you're in that ACC title game. If you lost to Louisville and you only have 1 loss, not your 1 loss, and you're a 3-way tie with 1 loss with Clemson and Louisville, hypothetically, this is all hypothetical, then you're out of the picture for that. And then who knows what happens at that point. Even if you've won all your other games, then you should be in okay shape. But who knows with this system now? So that's a must-win game. And so we'll know in October. Like, you wanted to have answers now. Fans want to have answers now. There's actually a real disease. This is a real thing. I can't remember the name of it. It's like 2 people's names who discovered it. They didn't really. It's not a discovery, but it's a disease where people who know less are more sure in how they assert themselves about the situation. Like, that's an actual thing, and it's a common psychological thing that the less we know about something, the more sure we are of what we think. So in other words, we've seen 2 games, and fans watching this show right now probably are just thinking, we're going to go undefeated. We look amazing. This is the best we've ever looked in 22 years, and there's nobody we play this year that's so great except maybe Louisville. 1 loss at most, we're in the playoffs, right? We know this based on what exactly? 22 years of failure. We beat a bad Florida team. We beat a non-existent FAMU team. What we do know is Cam Ward's great. What we do know is Tyler Barron seems to be really good. What we don't know is when Ruben Bain's going to come back and if he'll be 100%. So, there are question marks in the secondary. There are question marks perhaps with Miami's offensive line just because they haven't been tested. Like, we know we have 3 really good offensive linemen, but I'd say the jury's still out maybe on Zach Carpenter and even Matthew McCoy. They haven't been tested necessarily, right? Zach Carpenter was okay, pretty good at Indiana.
And Ryan Rodriguez also.
Yeah, and Ryan Rodriguez, let's not leave him out. But like so in other words, I know fans, based on this limited amount of information, want to jump to, we know we're great, we are great. And that's this disorder. I could look up the name of it really quickly because my brother's actually a PhD in public health, and he sent me this whole story.
While you're looking it up, I think that is why, the big topic coming out of the FAMU game was how long Cam Ward was in the game. And, I think that's why we are seeing things like Cam Ward in the game till late in the 3rd quarter. Mario Cristobal's not taking anything for granted. He knows style points matter now in modern day college football. And he wanted to make sure that they got that 45-point victory, that Cam Ward had his 300-yard passing day, that the optics for the people that are just looking at stats and scores were there.
Okay. Well, the name of this, it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. The Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a term that describes a psychological phenomenon in which stupid people do not know that they are in fact stupid. That's the summary of it. What that essentially says is when you don't have enough information to be informed, you think that you know what you need to know. You think you're an expert on that situation, even though you have very little data points. And Mario intentionally gives us very little data from inside. We're on the outside. So all we have for data points are 2 games against teams that could be among the worst teams in the country. Florida on defense could be one of the worst teams in the country, and FAMU, obviously good for their division. But if they were in the ACC, they'd be in last place, okay? So let's be real. So anyway, I'm not saying that, Gary, I'm not saying you suffer from the Dunning-Kruger effect. You definitely don't, Gary. You do not have the Dunning-Kruger effect, so don't worry about it.
I'll tell you, there's one guy I know does not have the Dunning-Kruger effect, and that's our man Kane. I've been watching him in the lobby. He's been flexing his muscles. He's been blowing his nose. I don't know what the hell. He's in some warehouse or something, getting ready to do his thing. So let's start off tonight with Kane. Kane, welcome to CaneSport Live. Where are you?
Hey, Matt. Hey, Matt. Hey, Gary. How y'all doing? Look, man, I ain't going to get loud because y'all got it short. I'm going to make it quick. I told you I work at Costco. Y'all know about Costco down there. I've been to a couple of them stores. Look, I just want to say the fan base was great. for a FAMU game. I'm looking around the stadium. How many fans was it total? 57, 58, 59?
They announced 57. Yeah.
Okay, we got close to 60. Maybe we'll get 60 this week. Secondary, yeah, they got beat on some plays. I get you, Matt. I feel what you're saying, but we ain't really did nothing. Just keep on moving. And Cam is great, and Tyler Barron look like a monster. He going high. Both of them draft stock is up. So hey, I'm gonna cut it short. I'll be there this weekend. Matter of fact, I got a big game Thursday night, and them Dolphins better do better on that offensive line, or Buffalo gonna run our ass right out the stadium. But hey, with that being said, take care. Hey, Matt, smile sometime, man. Damn it, smile. Gotta go.
Do you not understand how old age works, Canes? I can't
man,
make my
Canes
go that direction.
Hold on, man. I'm 56. How old are you? You gonna tell your age or you scared? Which one is it? Come on now, talk to me.
Now you made me smile. My dead skin doesn't like to move. Okay, Canes? I'm glad your skin's not dead like mine. Congratulations.
Y'all take care. See y'all at the game Saturday or somebody. Take care. Have a blessed week. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. We'll see you next week. It's amazing how subdued he is, really, like compared to past years when the Canes are winning, man. He used to come on the show all fired up in past years. All right, let's go out to BK Hurricane. You're live on CaneSport Live. What's up, BK?
What's up, Gary? What's up, Matt?
What's up?
What's going on, fellas? Listen, this just been this year so far in college football is just surprises at every turn. But the one thing I could say is the teams with the elite quarterback play, I think, are going to end up making the biggest impact. So I'm still waiting to see a couple teams play. Still waiting to see Ohio State play live, a really good team, before I start holding out judgment. The Canes looked a little, lethargic on Saturday, but I think it's because they were running a very basic game plan. They didn't want to do anything too fancy. They didn't want to let anything out of the bag. But Cal looked pretty good against Auburn. I'll give him. Cal looked pretty good against Auburn, but who knows? Auburn may not be that great of a team. Who knows? I mean, we don't know anything yet. It's still early.
If they're losing at home to Cal like that, they're probably not a great team, but they're still a worse than middle of the pack SEC team playing at home that Cal came across the country and beat. I mean, that was a little bit of a wake-up call. I love it. I think it's great. I think the more wake-up calls we get about these opponents after everyone spent the whole offseason talking about how easy the schedule is, I think it's all great. I mean, I think it helps Miami to know that these teams are competent. I think it will help the preparation for the games. And, as we were talking about at the beginning of the show, you don't know what the margin of error is at all anymore in college football with, the quest to get into the playoff. And obviously not everybody that wants to be there is going to make it. You don't know how many teams in the ACC are going to get the nod. You feel pretty confident that they're going to probably put at least 3 from the SEC in there. Then you have the Big Ten. So, I think every single game really does count, and the style points matter too.
Yeah. What do you think about Sam Brown? Because I think Elijah Horton is giving him a run for his money.
Isaiah Horton. Yeah. I think Sam Brown's in his head. I really do. I think both of them are very good. I think Isaiah Horton's one of the more improved players on the team. I think Sam Brown is way better than what he's showing us so far. I think it was in his head. This is my year. This is my time. I got to put up big numbers. I got to be the man. I got to get the ball fed to me. And it's pretty obvious that's not happening. Okay. They're not feeding any of Restrepo's getting fed, because he's so damn good. I mean, it's like, if you're Cam Ward, why would you not be looking for Restrepo? I'm not sure that Sam Brown has been able to build the same connection yet with the quarterback. And I'm pretty confident that he's probably not getting the results that he would have liked to get in coming in here. So he's probably in his head a little bit. And hopefully as this season continues and he does get to do some things and have some success, hopefully he'll calm down and let his talent take over. He does have an enormous amount of talent, not just as a receiver, but as a blocker too. He sprung Fletcher up at Florida. Great block. on that one play down near the goal line. So Sam Brown is a very important player to this team, and it's very important that he get his head together. I hope he does. The season, we're already 2 games in, man. Like, this thing's going to go really, really fast, and there's not going to be a lot of time to wait for guys to get it and come along. Sam Brown needs to build forward momentum here with him in terms of himself. And then if I were advising him, I would tell him, stay after practice, start building a better connection with Cam Ward.
Okay. So when is Damari Brown coming back? Is he cleared yet, or we don't know?
We don't know if we'll see him this week or not. We do not know. We don't think it's serious, but we don't know the answer to that question.
Because I know we have that freshman out there. What's his name? OJ Frederick.
Yeah, he's the real
He's
deal.
out there. He seems to be doing okay, but he hasn't been tested yet. So I guess that's just wait and see.
They will test him. That, now that they know he's out there, opponents are going to test him. I can tell you that he is really good, and he's way beyond his years as a true freshman. He reminds me a lot of Antrell Roll, when Antrell came in with the body and was so ready to play so early in his career. And OJ Frederick is not intimidated. He comes from St. Thomas Aquinas, where they have a very high level program, both internally and then obviously they're successful on the field. He's used to winning. He's been very well coached through high school. He came to Miami, even though he came in the summertime, he came in ready to go and ready to compete. And what he has done in such a short period of time is actually pretty amazing, and he deserves nothing but credit for it. There will be times he might get beat. He is still a true freshman, but OJ Frederick is going to be a great player for Miami the next several years.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to Saturday to see how generic the play calling is for Ball State. So they're saving all the good stuff, I think.
Generic was really FAMU. Like, they did nothing against FAMU. They were running.
Yeah, just keep feeding the tight ends. I don't care. Just keep feeding the tight ends, and I'll be, and I'll be happy.
Okay. Cam Ward loves Arroyo. You could see that for obvious reasons. And I think they'll keep feeding the tight ends. Riley Williams had a big play in the FAMU game. So they're proving to be really reliable and getting a lot done with the tight ends. All
right, Gary. Matt, thanks a lot, man. That's all I got for today.
All right, BK. By the way, Gary, to BK's points, since I don't like to talk when they're on the screen, because then they can just yell at me and tell me to smile, which is horrible. Auburn, they finished their last 10 games last year 3-7. They had a close game with Alabama, but they lost to New Mexico State. They're not a real good team anyway. So it's not like Cal beat this amazing team. Now, like you said, probably middle of the road, maybe a little less. SEC team is still fine. Cal's good enough, right? Cal's good enough. And then with Sam Brown, one of the concerns I had when they took him going in was I couldn't understand why last year he just went off a cliff. The first, I think it was 5 games last year, he was averaging almost 100 yards a game. And then over the last 6 games at Houston, I think he passed 40 yards like once, maybe twice. He just there was nothing. Just all of a sudden, it was just like there was no production from him. And consistency is so important with a receiver. And a lot of times with a receiver, they get down in the dumps on themselves. You'll see this sort of just stagnation where they don't get better. You could see it back in the day, right? With guys like, I'm trying to think, like Wiggins and Pope, those years, right? Just those guys would get mentally down in the dumps and they just couldn't do anything. They were physically better than the cornerbacks they were going against, but they could not make plays. And Sam Brown has to get out of, I would call it a slump. I think he started the season in a slump because the expectation, I think, from Miami's end was he was going to be like Xavier Restrepo Part 2. Like, he was going to be a go-to guy. That was why they took him. But he looks more like the second half of Houston receiver than he did the first half of Houston receiver. And if he can't come out of that, then Isaiah Horton, to me, I think, is really looking great because not that he's faster than Sam Brown. He's not, but he's got size, right? And the amount of effort Isaiah Horton brings to the game, when you watch Sam Brown's effort and Isaiah Horton's effort, it's a different level for Isaiah Horton. And maybe it's different with some other guys too. It's not fair to compare it to Isaiah, but Isaiah Horton is what Mario Cristobal wants. Big, physical, doesn't quit, blocks, like does everything he can do, every ounce of energy he can bring to the game he is bringing. And you could see it even on those like playground plays, right? Like Cam Ward is extending the play for 5 seconds. A lot of receivers, like if you watched the NFL games the other night, right? Quarterback rolls out, the receiver ends his route and just stands there. Like that's in the NFL, right? Because they don't want to get in somebody else's way. They don't want a ball going somewhere it shouldn't. Like that's what they're taught to do. In college, it's different, man. College, you can get on the playground with Cam Ward. And Isaiah Horton finds the open space. You've seen it a few times already, right? He finishes his route, but then I see Cam Ward scrambling, and he'll find that soft spot in the zone, or he'll beat his guy to a spot and make a play. And like when you have a guy like Cam Ward, you need that so desperately. A big, strong, physical guy who will find an open space when you're extending a play as a quarterback is invaluable. So to me, if I'm the coach right now, Isaiah Horton's the starter. Like that's just the facts. Like he's your third best receiver right now. Or certainly one of the top 3 best receivers right now, from what I have witnessed just watching these games, maybe number 2, even after Restrepo. I mean, Jacoby George, obviously we know he's super skilled and talented, but he hasn't really turned up yet.
I think there's a couple things to play there. Number one, Sam Brown came in late, didn't get the benefit of spring practice with Cam Ward. Okay, that's number one. Number 2, it goes back to what I was talking about, the staying after practice part. They work on those scramble situations in practice, and they put a lot. With Cam Ward, he puts a lot of time in with those receivers to make sure that when they get in those situations in games, that they are on the same page and they know what they're doing. This success that they're having, it's not just happening by accident. Like they are working hard at this. And so that's, Sam Brown has to keep building that connection. He's coming from behind. The other thing I'm going to throw out there is when Miami signed Sam Brown, one of the things I heard was that Isaiah Horton and his camp were not real pleased about that because, there was a feeling that Sam Brown was coming in and taking reps, going to take reps from Isaiah Horton, who was establishing himself through spring practice. But there's nothing like competition. And that's what Mario wants. He wants this kind of competition at every position. Guys battling it out every single week, scrapping and scraping for every single rep that they can get. And, I guarantee you the presence of Sam Brown has lit a torch under Isaiah Horton, even more so than he already was. And it has to be contributing to how well he's playing, and vice versa. I think the way Horton's playing is going to help Sam Brown and remotivate him. This is a long season, man. They're going to need them both, and they're both very good players. And I hope Sam Brown, it starts coming together for him. He does have that type of capability. Let's go out to Sebastian. Sebastian, welcome back to CaneSport Live. How you doing tonight?
Hey, pretty good, Gary. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Sebastian.
Good to see you guys. Matt, I just want to start the show off saying I really, really enjoy you in the morning. But you're very, very cranky lately.
At least there's one person that enjoys them in the morning.
I guess you found the one guy who enjoys the show. The one guy. That's it.
You try waking up early to Matt every day. Jeez.
But to give you a shout out though, Matt, you're a very, very good analyst. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate some of the insight that you provide the fans because you watch the game a lot differently than we do. You break down the plays, and the relationship that you have with the players gives us a totally different perspective that we just wouldn't get any other where. So I'm not going to give you a hard time, but I just wanted to give you that.
Listen, I'm not good at taking compliments because I've never gotten them. So this is a first. Appreciate it. Thank you, Sebastian.
No, that's pretty cool. What I want to talk about tonight, and maybe you guys can elaborate on, is the improvement of the roster for the University of Miami Hurricanes football. And I think it's clearly evident by the fact that they don't have to play a lot of their starters on special teams like punt return and kickoff return. And I really felt like over the last couple of years, we would just kind of get worn down later in the games because a lot of our starters were playing, those types of plays. So if you could just talk a little bit about where you see like the biggest improvement in the roster and how that has made a difference, because watching those guys play, those backups, I was really, really encouraged by them. I'm not expecting them to be like the game changers this year, but there's nothing that can simulate game time reps. And I think a lot of our players were able to get some of that. So you can just talk about just the improvement of the roster from first teamers all the way down to second and third teamers, and what makes you guys encouraged about our future, or somewhat a little discouraged about our future based upon the talent that's on the roster right now.
Go ahead, Matt. He's president of your fan club. You take it first.
Oh, all right. So if this year's team was playing, let's say, the Manny Diaz's team from his final year at Miami, this year's team wins 38-10. Now that's not relating to, I think, your full question, because you want to know roster-wise the entire level of depth.
Right.
It's an impossible question to answer, because we've seen Miami get top 10 classes, top 20 classes in the past, stack classes together, right, over the last 22 years, and they haven't worked out. So the piece that we still need to see, that we're starting to see a little bit of, is the development piece, right? Because I can't tell you how many years myself and fellow reporters who cover this team, and have covered this team for years and years and years, would just say to each other, like, do you remember when this guy got here 3 years ago? Why isn't he any better? Why has this guy gotten worse? There were players who got here and were worse,
right?
And Mario has built his reputation on recruiting top players and developing those players. Like, that's what he does. So you hope that that's still going to be the case. We haven't necessarily seen it yet. He points to a couple of guys, like he's already been sort of patting himself on the back a little bit with Wesley Basaintes, right? He says Wesley Basaintes came in, weighed 185 pounds. Now he's 230. He came in, he didn't even know what he was doing last year. Now look, he knows what he's doing. He's playing so much better. It's been 2 games, right, Sebastian? So there's a very small window where we have seen the improvement from Wesley. He's always been a great practice player, and he looks the best he has in these 2 games. But again, you got to wait a little bit longer to make sure. And then, you see like Zaquan Patterson made a play at safety in this last game that I haven't seen a safety at Miami make, maybe dating back to Sean Taylor, where he's across the field as a true freshman, recognizes that there's going to be a screen to the other side of the field, slips underneath the defender, and explodes, and literally was twice as fast as the running back getting to him and making that tackle. Like, I don't know if you know the play I'm talking about, but like,
no, I know exactly the play you're talking about.
Okay.
You give us that angle and that perspective of stuff that we just can't see on the field. We just don't dissect it.
Okay, well, so that's not development yet, right? He just got here, but that's the level of talent that they're starting at. So everybody starts at a certain level, and then they get better from there. If you're starting down here, which a lot of guys have been in the past at Miami, and you go on the same trajectory as somebody who's starting up here, the guy who's starting up here as a really, really great athlete who has a lot of physical upside is going to wind up at a much higher level with the same exact trajectory, And so I do think Mario's recruiting the right guys. My concern the last 2 years has been that he's been stunting his own growth roster-wise, development-wise, even talent-wise, by taking just another guys in the portal instead of free agents. I don't know if you know how I term these guys, but to me, a free agent in the portal is a guy who's going to start and be extremely productive and has done it in the past, right? Has proven it, not just some guy who was sharing reps as a first teamer somewhere or put up average stats somewhere as a starter or was at a lower level program and did okay. Like that, I don't need. Guys like Cam Ward, Damian Martinez, you go down the list, he's gotten a lot of them, right? Francisco Manoa, sorry. All these guys had excelled at their previous places, and they're excelling here now. So he's getting that mixture of top recruits. He's got to develop them. He already has this year, for the first time, a lot of free agents in the portal. So now, to your point, like he has to develop the younger guys that you're talking about, right? We already know the transfers were developed elsewhere. You can't say those were Mario's guys, right? 10 starters this year on the team are transfers Mario just brought in that were developed somewhere else. Okay, so the jury's out on if Mario can develop these guys. Based on his history, you have to think, yes, he will. Based on his history, you have to think that even after this year, when Cam Ward's gone and those other 9 transfer starters are gone, plus the other transfers like Deani Hill and Jalen Alderman will be gone, plus some of the guys are going to leave because that's just the era we're in. You have to hope that the first, second, and third classes of Mario Cristobal will be developed to the point where he only has to take maybe 4 or 5 free agents in the next year's cycle to make this, again, a team that can compete for the playoffs. And then hopefully it's less and less reliant on the portal, because at the end of the day, Mario's a recruiter. He's not,
Right.
hey, let's just grab someone else developed, try to integrate him into our system and hope that he matches our culture. You know, you're taking a little bit of a risk with some of these guys from other programs. You don't know how they're going to fit into your locker room, right? Because you're not going up to high school counselors and parents and guidance counselors, and they even say they talk to the custodians at some of these schools. Hey, do they treat you nicely? Is this young man respectful when you talk to him? You know, they talk to all these people. That's what Mario does. You can't do that with a transfer, right? You can't go to the Tennessee coaches and say, hey, is Tyler Barron a good guy? Did he fit in well with your locker room? They're not going to help you, you know? So at the end of the day, he's got to develop and he's got to make the roster better, but we don't know yet. So my answer to you, Sebastian, is thanks for your question, but it's impossible to answer.
Yeah, I'm gonna come in a little bit more in the middle of Sebastian. I don't think they will stop using the portal. I think that too much success this year in the portal. Signing days earlier now. It's going to be, I believe it's December the 4th. So the kids that are going to sign out of high school are going to need to sign on December 4th. I think they will. And then whatever else they have left that they can fit in, they're going to go hit the portal again. And, you know, we talked a little bit, I think, on the morning show about Robbie Washington, for example, moving to defensive back now. And the benefit of that is not necessarily that you're going to roll him out there cornerback this year, but he's not anywhere in the competition at receiver. He's a very good athlete. Now is the time in practice to see, can he play defensive back? Because when December gets here, there's going to have to be a decision made. Like, the one thing that I unequivocally can tell you that I feel is there is no more room in college football for, you know, patience, a three or 4 year patience in developing players. I just, you know, it just doesn't make sense to do that. You're paying them NIL deals. They're tying up a roster spot, and you can go to the portal and get somebody potentially better than them to come be part of this team. And, you know, I think there's 4 or 5 guys left that Mario did not recruit. And what we are seeing is the benefits now of 2.5 years of Mario Cristobal level recruiting that has been absolutely insane. I mean, it's the craziest damn thing you've ever seen. I mean, we covered 41 commitments this past year. That's 2 recruiting classes almost, like in the past. I mean, you know, we like our recruiting guys, Zuby and Steven, like they don't sleep. I mean, we're covering recruiting every day of the year like maniacs, because it's literally like they're recruiting 2 classes every year now. But we're seeing the byproduct of that recruiting. You know, Mario has a saying, Miami is starting to look like Miami again. And that's because of the depth. That's because they're stacking classes on top of classes. They're bringing in older guys while they're waiting for these young guys to develop. The young guys that don't develop are being sent out very quickly. That's the way it's going to be all over the country. It's not just a Miami thing, but, you know, guys like, you know, Jaden Wayne, for example, he played a lot of defensive end last year as a true freshman. By spring, he was gone because he was not as good as these guys that they have on the team now. And we're going to keep seeing this. There's nothing personal anymore about any of this in college football. You have an opportunity to do what Miami has done this year and very quickly transform your roster and transform your team. I don't think that strategy goes anywhere.
I've just been impressed with the talent he's brought in, because you get some glimpses and you get some flashes. Like when I see like JoJo Trader, I see Isaiah Horton two years down the road. Yes. When I see Marquise Lightfoot, I see Tyler Barron 2 years down the road. When I see Cam Pruitt, I see Wesley DeSaint 2 years down the road. I don't know if you're making that kind of correlation, but, you know, you 100%. Get these little glimpses, but you can see like their bodies just haven't physically developed for the college game, where I'm not saying I want these guys to redshirt this year, but, you know, just keep them in that strength and conditioning program. But as far as talent acquisition, I think he's been making a lot of he's not making a lot of misses. He's making a lot of hits on that. Talk to me about some of the other players and what your thoughts on it. Like Frankie Tenelaw, I was pretty impressed with, you know, his performance and how he looked out there. That was one of the guys you talked about. Zaquan Patterson was another one. I like what I saw from Nye Carr and JoJo Trader. But your thoughts on what you see in practice? What's the rumor? What's the feedback you get players like that, what they look
I'll
like.
go through it real quick, and then I'll let Matt do the same. I mean, answering your question, I'm thinking about Jordan Lyle at running back for sure. I'm thinking about Emory Williams, obviously a quarterback. I'm thinking about Elijah Lofton, a tight end, even though we haven't seen him do a whole lot yet in games. He's just a monster. He just has to stay with it, man. He's got competition for playing time there. Riley Williams and Arroyo are pretty damn good players. So, Lofton's going to wait. I think his time will come. Offensive line, I like what I've seen of a lot of those young kids. Frank Avila comes to my mind as a center of the future. A lot of those young, Kinsler and those guys are, showing potential. They're not ready yet.
He's dropping about 15 pounds.
He probably does. Probably needs to get in a little better shape. Yeah. But those guys there, obviously the young defensive linemen that you're not going to see this year, they're not physically ready. I don't even know how much we'll really see Justin Scott, when the games get more intense and real. But he's obviously a little further along than most, but some of those other guys, like Lightfoot that you mentioned, are going to be very good. The young linebackers on this team, look at, you saw Darius Hayes make a play the other day. They look like they're going to be very good. And the DBs are coming along too. So this is Miami starting to look like Miami, with young guys in development, older players that are carrying the load out front this season. And they obviously will keep building on that as they go forward. Yeah.
My next question is, I'm really concerned about the hype. I'm glad that everybody's like encouraged. We look good on the field. We're playing a lot of players and whatnot. I'm concerned about the hype. I don't even want to be ranked number 10. I'd rather be ranked number like 15. We hadn't won anything. We haven't won anything. And I just don't want our head to get so big because, I'm not worried about a South Florida or a Ball State, but I am worried about like a Georgia Tech. I am worried about like a Syracuse. I am worried about, I'm not sure like a Cal, college football, there's too much parity right now to think you just show up on the field and just what you have on the back of your jersey wins you football games. You just can't have that type of attitude. And I feel like as long as, we don't get really comfortable and start to believe our own hype, we can have a special season. But if we don't, I feel like we can blow it. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. Matt, Gary?
Yeah, that's when Miami will be back, right? Is when they are ranked 10th, ranked in the top 10, and they deserve to be in the top 10, and they stay in the top 10 because you're right. We've been conditioned to expect failure once Miami is getting ranked highly. And I think to some extent, Mario did address this. He does this coaches show. Oh, Sebastian, where'd you go? That was a good magic trick there. So he does a coaching show every week. And
my daughter was calling.
I see. Yeah. Well, I guess we're important. We're more important than your brother. I feel bad for your brother. We're more important than him. But all right.
That was my daughter. I call
her. Oh, your daughter. Okay, even worse. So anyway, so listen. Mario Cristobal did address it a little bit on this coaches show he does every week, and he said he's trying to recruit the right types of people. The character is just as important to him as athletic skill, because as a Miami fan, you've seen so many times now in the last 2 decades that these guys have been weak-minded. Not that they weren't better athletes than the other team. Not that we didn't have. We lost to teams as Miami Hurricanes that not a single player on that team would have a scholarship at Miami, right? Middle Tennessee, FIU. Every year there's a team where it's like nobody would have a scholarship spot, and somehow Miami lost to them. And the reason for it, fans love to blame the coaches, but the reason for it is weak-mindedness. And whether it's in preparation during the week, I remember there were times Manny Diaz was befuddled why they lost. We had a great week of practice, he'd say, the best week of the year of practice. And then they go out and they lay an egg, that's what he would say. It really is an issue where players tend to start to think that they're as good as what they can smell coming out of their butts, And when that happens, you got a problem. And that's why Mario Cristobal is talking about we need character recruits, not just top recruits, not just 5-star recruits. I remember back in the day, coaches would tell me the worst thing in the world was sometimes getting a 5-star recruit because they would come in and be head cases. And, there's a great example. They said they had to, almost deprogram them. That was the term they used, deprogram them. I remember Curtis Johnson, with Kellen Winslow II. I mean, they had to put that kid in the sandpits every single day of the first 3-4 months he was here, just to try and get him to understand, like, you're not special. You don't get to do stuff that other guys don't do. You do the same as everyone else, and you're starting at the bottom. We don't care that you think you're the best player in the country, stuff like that. You can on the list of all the 5-stars they've had, the Mark Popes, the Lorenzo Lingards, the Willie Williams, they've all failed because of mental weakness in one way or another, whether they're socially weak, just physically weak, don't want to put in the work. They feel that they're better than everyone else. Why aren't I playing enough? So they get upset. Their families telling them, hey, you should be playing more. Whatever the case is, if they can't tune all that noise out and just do the work and do their job, then that's what we've seen for 20 years. And that's what Mario Cristobal is trying to stamp out with his, both his feet and his arms and every other part of his body and orifice that he can, because that is what gets Miami killed and has gotten Miami killed for 22 years. Now, with that said, other programs don't seem to have that problem, right? You don't see these problems cropping up at the programs that have consistently been great, because that's the culture. The culture's been ingrained and they learn it from the older players. It's gone at Miami. What used to be at Miami, where it was like, okay, the older players teach the younger players how it's done, that disappeared a long, long time ago. It doesn't just get built back up overnight. It's not just Mario Cristobal can have a team meeting and explain it to everybody and it just magically happens. It will take years for it to happen. It's not there yet. Mario Cristobal might say it's there, okay, or it's a lot better, or whatever, however he phrases it. It's not there yet. It'll be there when there's a bunch of guys who have been in this program for 3 to 5 years that are taking every single freshman and saying, here's how it's done here. And if you don't do that, you can just freaking leave this room now and never come back, and they mean it. And when they mean it and that younger player hears that, A, they're scared out of their minds, and B, they do what they're told. And then they do what they're told, they work hard, they see the result, and then they teach the next guy 3, 4, 5 years later. And then that's how you become the Ohio States, the Michigans, the programs that for 10, 20, 30 years are just self-prophesizing championships.
Yeah,
We're not there yet. Some of that happen. We're seeing some of it happen already. Like out there on the field the other day, Ruben Bain wasn't playing. He's on the injured list, and he's out there before the game working with Cole McConaughey on his moves at the line of scrimmage and how to shed blockers and things like that. Like we're already, and he's only a second-year player, but
that's what I call championship traits. It's what you don't see. It's the film room. It's the let's go out there and throw and play some catch. Let's run this route until we get it perfect. What we see on TV is an afterthought, but it's what we don't see that makes the difference on what kind of team we're gonna have. I don't want to take up all the time. I'll leave with this last question. How concerned are you guys with Damari Brown, and how much longer is he going to be out? Are we going to see him soon? I'm expecting some good things from him this season.
Yeah, I mean, they said it wasn't serious after the Florida game, so we'll have to see. I mean, obviously,
it didn't sound like he was going to play this week, though.
I don't know that he'll be back this week. Yeah,
it didn't sound like he was going.
No, I don't think you'll see him or I doubt you'll see him or Bain, but. Mari, listen, even if we did know exactly to the day when they'll be cleared, if we said it out loud, you would never see these faces again. We'd be buried somewhere under the Hex Center, okay? we would no longer be having Good Morning CaneSport or oh yeah, Gary, you got Good Morning CaneSport up there. You got the wrong banner.
Wrong banner.
Or CaneSport Live.
Yeah, I got to fix that. I will. Right away. There we go.
Unless I'm like living in deja vu land and it's 5 a.m. What time is it? It's not 5 a.m.
But anyway, Sebastian, so yeah, thanks for being part of the show, and we will talk to you again next week.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye, Sebastian.
All right, man. Hey, real quick here, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about CaneSwear. It's early in the season. I don't know if you've loaded up on your shirts and hats and polos and all kinds of other Canes gear. You got to have a Cam Ward jersey. Your place to go is CaneSwear, and they have their store at 2655 South University Drive in Davie. If you live in South Florida, it's 15 minutes from Hard Rock Stadium. If you don't live in South Florida, you could shop them online at caneswear.com. And they have their entire store available to you online. Again, t-shirts, jerseys, polos, hoodies, hats, flags, decals, magnets, anything you could want Canes related, they have. They have sizes for men, women, kids, and babies, even pets. And you need tailgating stuff. They have tents and tables for you. They even have gear for the Dolphins, the Panthers, Inter Miami Soccer. So there's no better time than now to go get stocked up for the season. Caneswear is more than just a store. It is an experience. And again, the address is 2655 South University Drive in Davie. And obviously 24/7, 365 at caneswear.com. So visit the store at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, or go to caneswear.com for all your Miami Hurricanes merchandise needs. All right, let's go now to a guy I'm digging his background. Canes Cats Heat 305. Not sure what his real name is, but turn off. There you go. You got your mute button off. You're ready to go. Welcome to CaneSport Live. What you got for us?
Gentlemen, good evening.
Oh, you're Eric, aren't you?
He's got a better background than you do, Gary. Look at that background.
I'm gonna keep it football centric because we discussed in the chat. Gary, we talked about this last week briefly, but what are the realistic chances that we actually go from 85 to 105 in the scholarships? I know you briefly mentioned that it was like very expensive.
They can do it. I personally hope they don't. I think that it's a bad use of money. You're talking a couple $1 million at least to add 20 players to the team, just in terms of scholarships and the general costs of those players, NIL deals. They're going to be on revenue share soon. I think it creates way too much of a backlog on your roster. Too many guys standing around at practice and especially on game day when you can only really play 22 at a time. You have a bigger locker room, more elements that you have to worry about, more attitude issue. I mean, I could go on and on this subject. I don't know why they chose to, come up with that. It makes very little sense to me when you factor in the economic aspects of it, along with the cultural aspects of it, within the programs. So, I mean, listen, Mario's not going to want to let anybody get an edge in any area. And if schools are going to 105, I'm sure he's going to want to go to 105. I personally hope they don't do it.
But what now with Title IX? Wouldn't we also have to add 25 women's scholarships? Or would that be the case? Or would you think football would get excluded?
There will be more scholarships in other sports too. Yeah. So
I mean, that's double the cost as well.
You're talking about a lot of extra expense, no question.
I mean, that's before you even get to a baseball scholarship. Like I've been trying to tell people. I mean, things cost a lot of money here. I mean, it's $94K in tuition. Times that by another 25. I mean, that's like $5 million per year per player.
Yep, no doubt about it.
Another thing I wanted to discuss was just more about the team in general. I mean, culture-wise, I agree with what Matt has been saying about that we've been taking too many guys that are just takes. I mean, finally, we've been taking some guys that are free agents. But, I mean, overall, I mean, do you really think we're going to keep taking more transfers in the future, depending on the cost of the player, or would it end up having to be development-wise?
I'll weigh in on this one because it's a great question. And you can look at it two ways, right? You can look at it like a normal person. Oh, he's gone. I guess let's answer his question. You can look at it two ways. Oh, he's back. You could look at it like a normal person, and you can say, okay, our running back room is good. Our receiver room is good. We maybe need one offensive lineman. We need one defensive lineman and one secondary guy. Just off the, I'm not saying for Miami specifically, but that could be like a normal roster, right? If that was the case with Mario Cristobal, my personal feeling is he will still take 10 guys. Maybe not all free agents, right? Because a free agent will only come into a situation where he knows he's going to start probably, right? So if you already have two great returning receivers, it's hard to get an alpha number 3 receiver. Obviously Sam Brown did come into the situation this year, but it's hard to do that. But what Mario treasures above all else is the word competition. And a lot of times, like, he will never sit on his laurels, and he will fall in love with a guy. Like, sometimes I don't know if you do fantasy football, but I do fantasy football. And like, there are guys who some people rank 30th right, in these, like the 30th ranked running back or the 30th ranked receiver on these lists or whatever. And I'm like, I love that guy. I think Xavier Worthy is going to be a top 10 receiver this year. And you'll be like, I need that guy no matter who else I get in the first 3 rounds, you know. And you wind up, maybe because of the way things go, you wind up with, you know, 3 of your first 4 rounds you're taking a receiver, and you still want Xavier Worthy in the 5th round, right? That's Mario. Like, Mario is the guy who will take a second top quarterback in the first 4 rounds of your fantasy football draft just because he loves that second quarterback. And just in case, you know, something happens to the first quarterback, like, he will stack talent. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's wrong. Like, I don't love how he goes about the portal. We've already seen the first 2 years what he did, where he just took guys to basically compete to be backups, compete to maybe push the starter. Like, if you're taking any transfer at this point in this program, it's got to be a Cam Ward. It's got to be an alpha. It's got to be a free agent. Not, hey, let's take another Jalen Alderman because maybe he'll start. Like, just take freshmen, man.
They made him count much better this year.
The cost of all these scholarships, like you said, and great points, okay? Every scholarship that football takes, it's going to cost a lot of money, because if you go over that 85, right, every one you add after that, it's not just an addition in football, because you're right, they got to add an additional female sports scholarship, right? And baseball's already.
Gary also said that. Gary, I think you mentioned that it was $2 million per scholarship for football, with the cost of the training, the food.
No, I'm talking about $2 million for another 20 players.
Okay.
That's just scholarships.
Yeah,
basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
And baseball is getting more scholarships. So yeah, at some point, all that money could go, you know, schools now control NIL money to some extent, right? So all that money could essentially be put into the NIL process in some way or regard. So you don't want to just throw away scholarship spots on guys in the portal that you have to pay. You know, I don't need a backup that I'm paying $400,000 to at running back when I can just take a freshman running back who's probably going to be just as good, you know, potentially, or maybe not quite as good. But like, if you don't need the guy, just don't take him. Like, that's my point. I think Mario will, because I know Mario pretty well. But my personal opinion is they shouldn't, unless they're just total free agents from here on out, because I think this roster has been built up enough to the point with young guys that you don't need those older guys. And if you take too many older guys every year, guess what happens? The younger guys leave. Hey, I'm not going to play. They're just going to keep taking portal guys at my position. I'm just going to go somewhere else where I can start right now. And that's the last thing Mario wants to do anyway. So,
yeah. All right, King Cat, I'm going to let you go for tonight. Come back next week. We've got 8 minutes of show left here for tonight, because we're going to cut off at 9. Everybody wants to watch the debate. And we got a ton of questions. We're going to try to go through some of them. But come back next week and we'll talk more.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for being part of the show, man. All right, Matt, let's take the last few minutes here and just go through some of these topics that have been thrown out in the chat. Can we elaborate on why Samson Okinola is not getting cracks at the starting lineup? Is he overrated? Matt, I'm not ready to say he's overrated. He's coming from, he's first of all, he's way too big, and I don't want him coming after me. But he is coming from a position of weakness, in the point that he didn't play at the highest level of high school football, and it is taking him time to develop. I think we will see more of him as the year goes on. But you know, I think the guys in front of him are just better. I mean, there's no doubt about it, man. What makes us think? Norm Smith wants to know, Matt, what makes us think this season's going to be different?
What makes us think this season's going to be different? Cam Ward. That's literally it. If Cam Ward is not on this team, I'm saying 3 or 4 losses. You know, like, that would have been my prediction before the season. And like, it honestly, that's the difference. They have a quarterback who is the most exciting quarterback I've ever seen at Miami. And, you know, I've been following the team since the 90s, okay? I know Gary predates me. But I can't imagine there's been a quarterback at the University of Miami, regardless of all the great quarterbacks that have been here, that do the things that Cam Ward does. I mean, how exciting is it to watch a guy do the stuff he does, plus have the talent level he has, NFL arm strength. I mean, he's being projected as a first-round NFL draft pick. And guess who the last first-round NFL draft pick was? It was in the 1980s, right? Wasn't it? Isn't that the last time they had a first-rounder?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the difference. Like, that's what is different. They have something on this team that they have not had since the 1980s. And it's called quarterback, which is the most important position to distribute the ball to the offensive playmakers.
All right. Why did Miami offer OJ so late? They didn't. He was just a late graduate. That's why he came in the summer and wasn't here for the spring. Mayday wants to see Damian Martinez get going. He hasn't shown that he's really dominant. He was nicked up before the season. I think that slowed him down a little bit. And Matt, they're trying to rotate guys at running back and keep these guys healthy and fresh. There's been no reason to burn out Damian Martinez.
Well, it's a really good question, because I think what Mayday is really getting at is they need to show that they can just win with the run game, right? They've shown they can win with just the pass game. When they can show that, hey, opponent X, Y, and Z, we'll call them X, Y, and Z, but really it's opponent Cal, Louisville, and Florida State. When you show those teams, we can win just by running the ball down your throat. Now they can't just pin their ears back and come after Cam Ward and try to damage Miami's diamond in the whatever you want to call him. That's the guy. So you need to have some sort of mitigation against Cam Ward, where defenses need to be kept honest. And the way to keep a defense honest is to show that you can run the hell out of them and just run them over. And I agree. I don't think Miami's run game has been dominant. Florida's defensive line was decent, not great, but good enough. Probably one of the better defensive lines Miami will face size-wise, for sure. They had a 450-pounder, for instance. But Miami didn't run well against Florida. And then you have to throw the
pass. Yeah,
and FAMU, you got to throw the run. I mean, they didn't run for 225 yards, but you have to throw that out the window. I think this week against Ball State, I think we'll see more of a dedication to the run game. I think for whatever reason, I think Miami just is really enjoying showcasing Cam Ward a lot, especially all the abuse Shannon Dawson's taken. It's probably nice for him to be able to say, look, this is my offense. Enjoy it, like it's a piece of key lime pie from Joe's or something. But at some point, I think they'll go back to the Mario Cristobal ball, which is, hey, we are bigger, stronger, and want to kick your butt, and we're going to do it with our offensive line and running backs. And that. I think that'll start this week. I think they run the ball more this week than they have the last 2 weeks, and I think they'll run the ball for 250-plus yards this week. That's Matt Shodell's fairly obvious prediction.
All right, what's up with Jadaeus Richard? Dude looks lost. He did not play well against FAMU. No argument there at all. Remember, he was the guy that was considered potentially the weak link of the defensive back group going into the season. And he has got to play better. No question about it. Robbie's better than Sam Brown. No chance.
Kane for life. Kane for life is actually Bobby Washington. That's my guess.
Yeah, no chance on that one. Fletcher looked better than Martinez. Yeah, but you got a very small sample size with Martinez. They're both good. They're both very similar to me. I wouldn't judge right now which one's better than the other. Martinez does have a little style where you call it dancing, Joel Hogu, but he does have a lot of patience and waits to find.
He obviously has been studying Le'Veon Bell film. I mean, you watch Damian Martinez, and he wants to stand behind it. You remember how Le'Veon Bell used to just stand almost waiting behind the line for that little hole to open, and he'd bang right through it? Like, that's what Damian Martinez looks like he wants to do, whereas Mark Fletcher just gets the ball and goes. And I get that, either style can work, but they do have interesting differences in their style. And I wanted to share that because I wanted to cut off Gary and speak.
Oh, you're good.
That's all I live for. All I live for is to interrupt Gary.
All right, guys.
It's my only joy in life.
That's going to do it for this abbreviated CaneSport Live this week. We will be back next Tuesday night to continue the conversation and continue talking about all of these issues. We're going to adjourn now so everybody can go watch what promises to be a quite entertaining presidential debate. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we will see you next time, everybody.